You know, there are those moments in life when you just want to take your brain, wring it out like an old rag, and scream, "Why the hell didn't you think of this sooner?" Well, that's what happened to me. Actually, scratch that, it happened to my brother Vic. I was more of a witness, a listener, and, let's say, a bit of a side actor in the whole scene. Like most Saturdays, I wasn't planning to go anywhere. Laziness is practically my middle name on the weekends. But then, in the morning, Vic sends me a picture of a wallpaper roll through Messenger with a note, "Grab a beer and come over, we'll put this up." And, honestly, how could I say no to my own flesh and blood? So, I show up at his place around evening, lugging a heavy bag, not just beer, but a whole toolkit. I walk in, and instead of Vic being in the kitchen, there's his best buddy Alex, lounging around like he owns the place, munching on sandwiches, sipping tea. "Oh, look," I say. "Where's the construction crew? Or did you decide to renovate the tea-making process?" Alex flashes me a grin, and Vic yells from the bathroom, "Nah, Danny, no construction today. Dad's been with me all day, and now I'm hanging with my son." Then, enter the star of the show, my 4-year-old nephew, Theo. Pajamas covered in cars, a lollipop in his tiny hand, and eyes that could melt your heart, looking up at me like a little Shrek cat in need of forgiveness. "Daddy, you're the best." He hugs Vic's leg like he's won the lottery. And that's when I look at Vic and think, yes, the purpose of our meeting is over. But, of course, Dad's heart melted like March snow under the scorching sun. Anyway, the three of us were sitting in the kitchen with beer in our hands and chatting about absolutely nothing important. Then, as usual, Alex makes a run to the store for foam, and Vic and I decide to check on Theo and see what the little guy was up to. That's where the real fun begins. We walk into the nursery. And of course, it's a disaster, like a mini tornado named Theo had just torn through it. Toys, crayons, bits of paper all over the floor, drawings scattered everywhere. And there's Theo, sitting in his green high chair, diligently working on his art. I lean in and ask, "How's it going, Picasso? Show me what you've got there." He proudly points at his masterpiece, which consists of a bunch of cross-shaped scribbles. "Those are pigeons," he announces with all the seriousness of a seasoned artist. "Well, pigeons it is." "And who's this?" I ask, pointing to the next one. There are 2 sketches, with round heads and arms and legs growing from, well, let's just say, places that aren't exactly in the anatomy book. Classic kid art, right? I asked, "Are they mom and dad?" Theo shook his head. "No, it's mom and uncle." I turned to Vic, stunned. "Did you hear that?" Vic didn't respond, his lips tight, eyebrows knitted in confusion. Then he looked at Theo, his voice shaking. "What uncle?" Theo, without a second's pause, grinned and pointed towards the kitchen. "Alex." Vic looked like he'd just been blindsided. I nearly forgot to breathe. It felt like we just crossed into unfamiliar territory. What were this uncle and mom doing? I asked, though deep down, I already feared what was coming. Theo, ignoring the tension, picked up his little drawing again, turned it over and pointed at the picture. Mom was lying down, and my uncle was on top. They got into a fight. Vic froze. He turned pale, his breath caught in his throat, and he could barely say, "Where did you see that, son?" Theo didn't lose his head and pointed straight to the kitchen corner. "There. I got up at night to get some water, and they were just fighting." Vic collapsed onto a stool like he'd been hit by a freight train. His face drained of color, his eyes blank, his lips a ghostly shade of white. He was silent, only his fists clenched, knuckles turning a deep shade of white. Just when things couldn't have gotten worse, Alex walked back in, all smiles, holding a bag of beer, completely unaware, ready to keep the good vibes flowing. Vic, still frozen, said, without even glancing at him, "Alex, can you show us how you and my wife were fighting?" Alex froze in the doorway, his body going rigid, trying to straighten up like someone who'd just thrown out their back. He took a step back, tripped over his own laces, and, with a mighty thud, slammed his head right into the doorframe. Perfect timing. It was like watching a light bulb flicker out, just poof gone. I stood there, blinking in disbelief, while Vic, expressionless, muttered, "Can you help me get this miracle outside?" We yanked Alex, now looking like he'd taken a few too many hits to the head, out the door by the scruff of his neck, plopping him into a rickety chair next to the trash can. We tried to settle him in, but his limp form slid straight into a pile of old potato peelings. I couldn't help but let out a little laugh. Well, that's a bit on the nose, isn't it? He dragged himself straight into the mess. But the fun wasn't over. As we were trying to prop Alex back up in the chair for round 2, stuffing a rag under him to keep him from slipping off, there she came, Vic's wife, Kate. She rounded the corner, exhausted, a bag in hand, and then stopped dead. "Oops!" she exclaimed. There, in front of her, was her husband, his brother, and her lover, all tangled up in the trash. It was like something out of a bizarre painting. Vic didn't lose his cool. He just nodded slowly and said, "What, darling, are we playing the truth game?" Kate, by then, was running so fast, even Usain Bolt would have been jealous. So, we made our way back to the apartment, shuffled into the kitchen, and cracked open a beer. Vic, already shaking off the chaos, casually waved his hand out the window. "Look, they're at it again. This time, it's in the mud." And sure enough, there was Kate, covered head to toe in muck, trying to drag Alex away, but he was stumbling all over her, falling on top of her like a drunken wrestler. It was, once again, a scene straight out of a wrestling match. Vic let out a heavy sigh, knocked back half a glass of beer, and said, "Well, that's it. Now I don't have a wife, I've got a family wrestling champion. Looks like I'm a free agent now." As you can probably guess, their family drama didn't last much longer after that. Nobody saw Alex again. Kate tried to explain herself, spin a web of excuses, but when the truth's been drawn out with a kid's felt-tip pens in a drawing, no amount of excuses can cover it up. Now, Vic lives with his son, just the two of them. Peaceful, no more fights or circus acts. He communicates with Kate only through a lawyer. Theo's grown up and become a bit more serious. Honestly, I still can't get over how sometimes a kid's version of things can be clearer than an investigator's magnifying glass. So, friends, if your little one ever draws little people, take a really good look at them. Sometimes, kids notice things that can make adults lose their minds.